Okay, hi everybody. It's a pleasure to see you all here. First, can you please raise your hand? Who's a parent here? Okay, now keep your hands up who are parents of more than 3 kids. Wow, why is that, I wonder? Oh, there's one.
There's 2.
2. Keep your hand up if you're a parent of more than 4 kids. Okay, so that leaves 2 of us. Okay. I feel so entitled. But Kristjan, I'm so pleased to see you here on the stage with me, because I know you had a rough last night. You were celebrating the birthday of one of your kids.
Oh, that is correct. So one of our babies is here. His name is Tool, and he got 2 years old yesterday, so it's a toddler. And we did finish at 4 a.m., but it was fun.
Okay, but that's not your youngest, actually.
No, that's true. My youngest is a 6.5-month-old guy called Torm.
Okay, so all of these names are somehow derived from the bad weather conditions.
From the Mother Nature, yeah.
Okay.
So when it will be a girl, it will be Lurts, probably.
Looking forward to it. Yeah. You still have to catch up to me.
Is correct.
Okay, but I'd like to start this conversation by this so-called entrepreneur's dilemma, which actually is quite old already. You might not even remember that, because you might have been in high school back then. It was published in 2011. So that claims that a founder can only pick 3 out of 5, and the list goes: maintaining friendships, building a great company, spending time with family, staying fit, and getting sleep. So which one of the 3 would you pick, or have you picked over the years?
So my goal has always been finding a balance in between all of them. So who knows me a little bit better, they know that I'm awful in making decisions. And I'm awful in making decisions because I always want to get everything. As you can see, I'm not fat, but I'm not fit. As you know, we have a company, but it's not a unicorn. I have 3 kids, but not 4. What else was left? I sleep, but I went to bed at 4. And most of my friends are the people that I work with. But you can still call them friends. So I think I've kind of managed to go through all of the 5, but just setting your goals a little bit lower than absolute maximum.
So you're actually much better than Randy Zuckerberg, who came up with the list.
Maybe he had this, maybe she had this maximalist view to it.
Exactly.
That you have to choose. So I think you don't have to really choose your battles. You can also do everything, but you just have to give a little bit up.
Okay. So actually, I was going to say that it also boils down to the sort of quality-quantity balance, right? So I know that you're not a big fan of this work-life balance. So
yeah, I think if there's one thing I would like people to take away from this discussion, is that I don't believe that there is work life and there's family life. I think you cannot draw a border in between. They're completely intertwined. So you have one life, right? So both of them really have influences to the other. And I think what people do very little is that they actually don't think about what they want to do in their life. In my mind, people very often think what they want to achieve, I don't know, whether it's at work or in the gym. They set themselves goals like in, a year, I want to lose 10 pounds, or at work, I want to be a unicorn in 7 years. And then you use different scaling up methods to get to this 10-year goal, and you set smaller goals in between. But if you ask from people, like, where do you want to be with your family in 10 years, then I think a large majority of people don't have an answer. So what I suggest is that you look your life as a whole, and you think, okay, where do I want to be with my company? Where do I want to be with my health? But where do I also want to be, as a human with the family? Do I want to be married? Do I want to have kids? What kind of house do I want to have? Because we all know that if you don't think about it, and if you don't imagine it, and if you don't visualize it, you probably won't get there either. And if you do that, then there's also a very cool kicker to it, because when you make a plan also for your personal life and you start achieving that plan, and maybe you're like even ahead of that plan, so you got like the 2nd child before you thought you would, then you also get a good emotion out of that. You feel like you're hitting the plan and you're getting somewhere. So I think this is a very important thing for people to think of, that there's no work life, there's no family life. There's only one.
So as I understand, you see this, well, while we look at this beautiful picture of your beautiful family.
My wife chose it.
Okay, and you have a beautiful wife and beautiful kids. So this is like intertwined, like wines. So one would be your work, your family. So, and since you're building this consumer product again, this beautiful product that we see on the stage now, would you say that you actually get your kids involved in the process of developing your product?
Well, my kids love being in the factory, and although Estonian law obeys you from riding with 2 people, this is why I usually ride with 3 people. I take both of my kids to the kindergarten at the same time. But of course, they give me input to it, the whole family. And I think it's also, again, like that you have one life. My wife has always been very much involved in kind of the business decisions as well, and I think I've never named any of these things without my wife's recommendation. So again, I think they're very, very much intervened. So
tell us a little bit about what your normal day looks like. So you wake up at 4, as you mentioned?
No, that was just today. So I actually like to sleep a lot. I think the hardest thing about being a parent is sleep deprivation. I'm not a morning person at all. But yeah, let's take a regular day now when we're free. We actually live in Tartu, which is 200 kilometers from Tallinn. I wake up on the Monday morning, like super late, because I have to get one of my kids to kindergarten at 9. So I wake up at like 8:10. I'm too lazy to make them breakfast, so they eat some kohukes or something else and banana. And then I take them to the kindergarten. I come back home. I take my stuff. I go to the train. I took the train to Tallinn. And then I'm 1 or 2 nights in Tallinn. And then Wednesday I go back to Tartu. And my wife is a choreographer, so she works at evenings. So she works on Tuesday. Then my grandmother's babysit. And then on Thursday, when she works in the evening, I babysit. And on Friday I babysit and I take the kids. And on weekends, she also often works, right? Because choreographers do shows and then are at the weekends. So at the weekends, I also very often babysit. So basically, if you want to invite me somewhere and it's on Thursday or Friday, then you can't because I'm in Tartu. This is the first week after my 3rd kid where I'm in Tallinn on Thursday and Friday. So this is kind of, again, prioritizing. You just say that, no, it's not impossible on Thursdays and Fridays. If you want to see me, choose another day. And that's how we roll. And what is maybe interesting from our point of view is that my wife has gone back to work from 2nd month of the baby, but the work actually is in the evenings, right? So I would say she works like 20, 30 hours a week. But we kind of, take the seats. So she's available when I'm at work, and when she's at work, I'm home with the kids in the evening or in the weekend. So that has played out really well as well. But you can see that there's like no space for hobbies, like what is a hobby? I don't know.
And you must have a very understanding wife, as I understand.
No. Like she's absolutely not understanding. She's very brutal and she stands for herself. And we always make these plans together. So she's really not understanding. I mean, and I like it because I think that one of the worst things that can happen in a couple relationship is that you don't really express, right? That you forget about what you want to do or what you feel, is important to you, and then I don't know, a couple of years later you actually break up because one party was not fulfilled. So I love it. I love her because she doesn't do that.
Okay, as an entrepreneur, you're probably prone to looking for challenges. So, and having built the company in 7 years and having gotten married during that 7 years, having 3 kids, so how has that changed you as a founder or in your leadership position? Do you think you've grown due to the fact that you're a parent?
I don't know. Hard to say. I mean, I think other people can judge it better, but I think you just grow as a human being. But I wouldn't say that having a family has a very big impact on how I work as an entrepreneur. What is cool is that we have 3 co-founders, and all of us have got children. Heigo there with 2, right? Ted is in Germany, he has one. And many other people who we start with are having babies. So it's, I think one very important thing coming back to this, there's only one life thing, is that what I really don't get is that if people have this mindset that, let's take these entrepreneurial people that, okay, I'm going to found this company and then I'm going to work my ass off for 10 years, then I'm going to exit the company and then I'm going to, be there for my family for 10 years. I think it's like totally unbalanced. I think you will have more than 5 burnouts when you only build your company. And I think you will have 5 or more burnouts when you only have to be with your family, right? That's a hard thing to do. All the parents know, I think. So I see how people kind of look at their life and they make these 100% focuses and then they try to make them into blocks. But what if your startup didn't turn out and then it's like 7 years later and you go bankrupt and you understand that there's nothing else in your life than only this company, right? I'm sure you will break down. So, you have one life and it's quite short, right? So you gotta live.
It's getting longer every day.
That's very good. Yeah. I would be very disappointed if I get under 100. I would be very disappointed.
So as I understand your goal, if you will be 100 years old, you mentioned you wanted to have a large family. The happiest, you probably won't be thinking about, I don't know what machines we will be using at the time, but you would be most happy sitting in the middle of your huge family, like great grandkids, like hundreds of them.
I have this story that I never really thought about, that I want a lot of kids. But then my wife, her mother has 4 brothers and sisters, and they always went to their grandfather and grandmother place in the summer. It's a tradition for them. And the first time I was taken there, as a boyfriend, it was a big thing. It's like the family accepts you, right? And I go there in the summer, and I I really thought that we were in a wrong place because there were like 50 people. And then it turned out that it's actually like, grandmother and grandfather, then 5 children, and all of these 5 children have like 3, 4, and 2 and 2 or something like that. So there was just like, parents, their children, grandchildren, their boyfriends, girlfriends, and it was basically a festival. And the coolest thing is that a lot of old people feel, anxiety because they're very, very lonely in their, last part of their lives. And then I went there, and we were there like 3 days. And in the second part of the 3rd day, the grandmother was so toast, and she was just saying to people, "Please leave. I want to get a break." And that was the moment I was like, yes, that's the life I want. That's the emotion I want when I'm a grandfather. Like, I want to have this festival. I want to organize a festival for my old children. I want to be tired in the end of this festival. So, and this is the visualization I have in my head. And then you start thinking, okay, there's a company, and I probably build this company for, I don't know, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, but probably not when I'm 80 or 90. So what I have to prioritize is that I definitely hit that goal of being 80 or 90, and then you roll back and what are the other goals you want to reach. And that's how you make these decisions. No Thursdays and Fridays, sorry, but because I have to also take care of my family.
But coming back to the sort of more critical viewpoints, so having kids creates this major carbon footprint. And with your product, you're actually trying to reduce that. So do you see that as some sort of a conflict?
Absolutely. It's fantastic investment to the environment. Because I've always said that if you want to save a couple of 100 lives, study to become a doctor. And if you want to save millions of lives, study to become an engineer. So as all of my kids are going to be environmental engineers, it's just going to be a massively positive impact to the world.
Okay. So you also mentioned that so you haven't stopped yet, as I understand. So 3 is just the beginning, right?
Well, I kind of said, let's do 3, and my wife said that she wants 5, and then we agreed on 4. And then now when she was pregnant with the 3rd, she had this moment where she looked at me with a very, very serious face, and I thought that something has happened.
Slightly angry, you did it?
Yes, slightly angry, and then she told me, Kristjan, I'm not going to be pregnant only once more in my life. It's going to be 5. And I was like, yeah, up to you. Okay. End of the day, it's not me to manage. I like to be in an intercourse, and it's not my control what's going to be, coming out of that. So it's 5.
Okay, well, having also done it 4 times and given birth 4 times, I cannot resist to ask you, since my husband, it took us 4 kids for him to stay home with the 4th kid, finally. So would you be willing to actually stay on a father's vacation? They call it a vacation for some reason, I don't know why. But with the 4th one...
That's for the people who are not parents yet. Yeah, I would. But it just depends on, how life goes. We've discussed it. I'm going to take a 2-week holiday now, and she has a very intense period as well. So yeah, I wouldn't have anything against it. But I don't know. Somehow this so far it has kind of worked out like that. So
are you giving a promise here on the stage in front of all of us?
So if my wife wants it, no problem at all. Absolutely.
Okay, good for you. Well, good for Kristjan.
But it's for her to decide, I think, end of the day.
Okay, so if any one of you, mostly the parents, you might be curious to ask Kristjan a question or me a question, just don't be shy to put your hand up and ask a question.
No question? Oh, there is one.
Okay, front row.
Which one was the hardest?
Which one was the hardest? You mean which kid?
Yeah.
Of the kids or building the product?
Which one was the hardest for you?
The first one, definitely.
First one?
Absolutely, because you grow as a parent with your first child, and he is just very difficult as a kid.
My first one was very tricky, but we took it very, very seriously, like super confident and committed to it. We did many things right. Second dude was super easy, like a laid-back guy, slept well, and then you're like, wow, that's how it goes. And then the third kid is super intense again, and having like 3 kids at once is significantly more difficult than having 2 kids. Okay. So, if you have like 2 kids, then you have a parent per kid. And if you have the third one, then one is always missing. Like, one is always missing.
Yeah, they say that you only have 2 hands, right? So 3 is like literally stretching your capacities. And well, since we both have 3 sons, but I also have a daughter, so I can always say that my daughter is like my favorite child because she's the easiest.
She's the easiest?
Yeah, well,
for
absolutely for me.
Yeah.
So there was also another question, yes?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Mike.
Hi, sorry. While managing your Thursdays and Fridays, potentially weekend, do you have this anxiety of like, oh, have I given enough time for the kids versus enough time for tool? Or, are the kids going to different hobbies as much as they could or should, and what does should mean?
That's a good question. I don't have anxieties too much. So actually, I'll answer it in 2 phases. I think one part is, bringing work home is a kind of a sentiment as well. So as I said, I think you have one life, but at the same time, when you're with your family, there's no point of thinking constantly about your work. You can't do anything about it anyway. So it's like when you're late to your airplane, but you're sitting in a train. And then if you're walking back and forth in a train, being very anxious that you're going to be late, it doesn't help you. The train will still move in one direction or the same timetable. So it's the same thing like if you're home and with your kids, it doesn't help you if you think about your work. So you focus on that. And if you have more kids and they're small, it really helps because you're just trying to survive. There's no way you're going to think about work. But coming to the second part of the question, do you feel that you don't do enough for these different things? Then absolutely, but that's about having these 5 things and trying to manage the maximum out of all of them. And I think I have one very firm belief when it comes to kids is that the kids are born to your life, right? So however you live, that's their normality, right? There's no normality how to grow your kid, You never, please don't put your kid to bed at 8 p.m. Like, I don't know why people do that.
7, some do at 7.
I don't know why you do that. This means that you're visiting your friends and you have to start leaving at 6:30, And then you put the kid to bed at 7:30 and then the kid wakes up like 6 a.m., and you go to bed at 00 and then you're like, oh my God, I can't sleep. So when we had our first child, we've lived as a family in 2 cities. So the guy slept in 3 different beds every week. And he had 2 days of kindergarten in Tallinn, and then he stayed in Tartu, and so he lived in 3 different beds. And then when you have a parent that's saying that, oh, you know, I have to put my little one in this bed, and then I have a bedtime story, and I do this and this and this. And then we had this kid who just didn't care. Even if he was in a train, he just fall asleep, you know. And as long as you're hugging him, he's safe and sound and happy, right? You shouldn't think of what is the normal way of growing up your kids. As long as you're happy and you have a good relationship, the kids will always strive and be happy. So,
I completely agree with you on that point, that we've decided from the first difficult child that, okay, the child has to basically adapt to our lifestyle. We won't adapt to his.
But you've been living abroad with kids.
Exactly.
As well.
So we've lived in various places, and it's actually so much easier to adapt to your lifestyle in California as compared to Estonia, right? Or in London, where you're not even allowed to leave your kid to sleep outside in a trolley because your neighbor might just call the police. We obviously weren't aware of that, being these Eastern Europeans as we are. But I actually wanted to extend on the previous question that does that somehow frustrate you as a leader in the workplace that, you know, it's so easy to tell grown-up people what you expect of them, and usually they probably do what you ask them to do, and then you go home and there's this bunch of 3-year-olds who completely won't obey your orders.
I don't know, maybe I have those 3-year-olds at work as well. They don't really obey. But of course, that's like mega difficult. So, you know, I have had like 3 big things in my life. Number one was, some Estonians know, it's a project where you build racing cars in the university as a student. So you get very little sleep and you work a lot in the workshops. Then, you know, having a family, and the third one, building the company. And I would say that building the company is by far the easiest of those 3, and building a family is by far the hardest. So there's one thing that I'm a little bit annoyed in the startup industry, is that we think too much of ourselves, right? There's this kind of a sentiment that all these people who build startups and all these people who are founders, that they're really badass because it's so difficult to do, and they never give up, and they always strive, and, you know, they're so cool. I mean, as long as you're not a parent, then yeah, you're in a different league of difficulty. You know, you can't compare it to anything like, I don't know, waking up 7 times at night, being so tired that you're already disillusional. You almost like hear noises. You know, you're totally sleep deprived, and you want to take the kid and actually throw him against the wall, but you know you can't actually do it because it's your kid, right? And then you have to kind of manage this ultimate anger that you have inside yourself, and then he actually gets quiet and you fall asleep, and then you look at him and, oh, he's an angel, and you feel this fulfillment again, and you know, this level of sleep deprivation where emotions jump from one side to another. And I mean, if you're building a company, you actually are together with nice people, and you set your own goals and your own pace, and etc. So yeah, nothing is harder than building a family with small kids.
Don't even mention leaking boobs and painful uterus.
Absolutely agree. So it's mega easy for men.
Okay. Do we have more questions in the audience?
There's one in the back. If somebody can get the mic.
The guy at the back.
Middle in the back.
Do we have a microphone?
Yeah.
Hello. First of all, my real appreciation and admiration that people that are capable not only building companies but also building families at the same time. And do you rather prefer to work in the office or from your comfort of your home? And is it so comfortable? How can you manage at all working from home, having such a big family?
I have a fantastic hack for that. So I live in Tartu, but my father has a very small 1-room apartment in Tartu, but he lives in the countryside. So whenever I work from home, I don't work from my home. So I have somebody else's home to work from when I'm at home.
So your kids, you have a separate house for kids?
No, I have a house and then a house for work. Yeah. No, but basically, I think it's impossible to work from home when you have small kids. Like I don't know how people do that. I think it's mega difficult. It's one part is that they, you know, that they want your attention, but I think the other part is that you want to give them attention. You know, it's hard to do boring stuff when you can cuddle the little one.
I think my colleagues are quite used to seeing my kids in the Zoom calls, so that, probably all of us, this has become a norm, right? You no longer, this was like a big case 2 years ago when the CNN broadcast was interrupted by a kid. And these days it's, and then everybody was like, wow, how could this guy be so, like, he let his kids just run loose. But these days it's normal, and I think this is the new norm, right?
Yeah, but to be honest, what I really like to do is if I'm working, then I actually, you know, leave home and then I work intensely and then I come back to home. So for me, it's actually hard to do these calls with the kids in the back.
It is absolutely hard.
So I try to avoid it, but of course, sometimes you have to do it, right?
Switching,
thank God for kindergartens, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So any more questions in the audience? Feel free to raise your hand. Do we have any questions in the app? You know, you can also type in your questions if you're too shy to ask them aloud.
No questions there. I think everyone just turned up here.
But then maybe one more thing that I would like to discuss about is you know, not just from a founder's perspective, but from people's perspective that you work with, and coming back to this, you know, one life idea. Also, if you work with your colleagues or people you work with, you know, people you do one-on-ones with, I think it's super important to create, you know, trust with them so that you really know what's going on in their lives. You know, the worst thing that can happen is that they have some, you know, tragedy in their life, and then you're pushing them to do more, and you basically break them. So, you know, coming back, there's one life, only not with parenthood, but you can't, you know, divide them. So, for example, if you know, women get kids. Then they always kind of leave their workforce for some time, right? And everybody knows that. But if a guy gets a kid, right, he becomes a father, you just think that everything is normal and he pushes his 8 hours a day in, right? Like you don't think about it, but actually for the first 6 months he won't be at 100, right? He will be maybe at 60 or 70 or 80% of his capability. And I think it's super important that everybody, you know, understands that and takes this into consideration as well. So always, you know, talk with your team and see where they are in their life, and if they have some hardships, then you can't push them at work. And if things are well, they can, you know, be pushed more, and they push themselves more as well. But also remember that when dads have kids, then they're not going to be on 100 in the first 6 or 7 months either, right? That's totally normal.
So where do you want to push your kids? You mentioned you want them to be engineers. Are you pushing them, or you're sort of...
No, what I'm usually doing, I'm pushing them in the pool, or I'm pushing them to climb really high up. So I do have one thing where I really work that they don't have fears. To be honest, they are maniacs. So the first one didn't have a fear at all. So my first kid learned to swim in a way that when I went to a pool, he just runs and jumps into the pool. His first thing, like he's like 1 year old.
Of course.
He can easily, you know, just learn to walk. And then he goes down the water, and then he looks back, and then he smiles at you, drowning. And then there's 2 things you can do. Okay, first thing you do, you jump after. And then you have 2 things you can do. You bring him out and you're nervous, or you pull him out and you say, like, fuck yeah, that was cool. I'm the second type of guy, so he learned to swim when he was 3. So this is what I really try to do, that I try to work that they don't have any fears, that they climb high and they jump and they feel confident. So I think that's the only thing I really want to achieve. Everything else is up to them. Okay.
So what would you like to leave with this audience here? As we learned, we don't have too many parents with multiple kids. So
no, I don't think it matters whether you have 1 or 0 or 5, but just in general, I think what I would love to see more is that people set goals also for their not-work life, you know, where you want to be in 40 years, 50 years, and believe me, that actually means so much more, right? You can have €1 billion on your bank account, but if you're alone crying into a pillow, then that wasn't really a cool life, right? Everybody admires Elon Musk, right? He has had, I don't know, 4 women to give him children. I think he has 7 children, and he doesn't have a relationship. And I'm quite sure that he goes to bed and cries into the pillow sometimes. Although for humankind, he's a massively good thing, but I don't think he's personally a happy person. So really think about what you want to achieve in your life in general, and building a company or working is just part of that.
Okay, thank you, Kristjan, for that beautiful talk.